Hello, this is Yvonne Manier, and this is video 12 in the series on EQStitch. We're going to start today by double-clicking on the EQStitch icon to launch the program. When the program opens up, it will take us to the tip of the day. We're not going to be using the tip of the day today, so we're just going to close that box. We need to create a name for our project. So under the Create a New Project tab, I'm going to type the word video 12 and I'm going to call it circle text. We're going to be creating text along a circular path, so that's why I've named it circle text. You have to click the word OK at the bottom of the box in order to set the project name. You know that the project name is indeed set by looking at the upper left corner of your screen. It should say video 12 circle text. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to set the program back to the default settings. I've been playing with my program a little bit and I want it to be back to the defaults. So I go up to the word File and down to Preferences. And once I click on Preferences, in the Preference box, I'm going to click on the word Restore. In the center of the page, I'm going to put a check mark in front of Include Original Fabrics. And then I'm going to click on the word Restore Default Settings. The program tells me that it's going to shut down, and that's just fine. I'm going to say OK. The way the program resets itself is by shutting down, and then when you reopen, it's back to the default. So we're going to double click on the EQStitch icon. And again, when the program opens, it will go to the tip of the day. And again, we're just going to close that. This time we're going to open an existing project. We've already named it, so we're going to open an existing project, and right at the top is video 12 circle text. I click on it to highlight it, and then I click on the word OK. The project sketchbook opens. We've not created anything yet, so we're just going to close this. There's nothing in our sketchbook. Again, I know I'm in my proper project because it says video 12 circle text at the top. We are going to be working with stitching today, so I need to go to the stitch work table, which is the little green butterfly icon at the top. I click on that and it takes me to the stitch work table. The default for the program is a 100 millimeters hoop size, which is 4 inches, and that's fine for what we're doing today. The default for the program is to open up on the embroidery work table. I know I'm on the embroidery work table because it has 3 tabs at the bottom of the screen. When I'm on my machine applique work table, there are 4 tabs along the bottom of the screen. I'm not creating applique today, I'm just creating stitches, so this is indeed the work table that I need to be on. I need to change a few things under the preferences on this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the drawing board options and click on the icon. And under the drawing board options, I'm going to click on the word Snap Grid. My grid has very small dots right now. I prefer them to be large dots so I can see them a little bit easier. So I'm just going to click on the radio dial in front of the word Display Large Grid Dots. I'm going to change my embroidery settings. The embroidery edge stitch setting, the default is for a steel stitch. I actually don't want an edge stitch, so in the little drop down menu I'm going to click on the word No Edge. For the embroidery fill settings, the smooth fill stitch is what the default is. There are other options, but the smooth one works just fine for me, so I'm going to leave that as is. Now, in order to set these changes, I must click on the word OK at the bottom of the box. And now you can see that I do indeed have my larger dots on my screen. It's visually easier for me to see where I'm going with these dots. The other thing I need to do is I need to have all the drawing tools available, and right now they're not all there. There's some hidden ones. Whenever you see a little black arrow at the bottom of the toolbar, that tells you there's other tools there. I'm going to click and hold on the little black arrow. I'm going to click on the word Add and Remove Buttons, and I'm going to click on each one of those that are not already highlighted to place a check mark in front of them. Once I get them all highlighted with a check mark, I just move my cursor to a white space on the page and click once, and now all the tools are available to me. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a circle, and I want to segment my circle so it has equal spacing all the way around. And this is going to be my visual guide for my placement of my lettering that's going to go around a circle. I'm going to click on the ellipse tool, and I am going to click on it to activate it, move my cursor over onto the screen. I'm going to hold down the control key and drag my mouse out and release. By holding the control key, it gives me a perfect circle. If I don't hold the control key, I may end up with more of an ellipse, and I don't want an ellipse or an egg shape or anything else. I wanted a perfect circle. So I held the control key as I click, held, and drag my left mouse cursor across the page. I want this centered on my hoop, so I'm going up to the toolbar at the top, and I'm clicking on the Move Selected Segments to the center of the block. And now you can see that the crosshair is indeed right in the center of my block. Now I want to divide this, and I don't have to do the math to figure out exactly how many segments to put in here. The program will do this for us. It will create different shapes for us, but it will also put segments in for us. Right now the default is segment number 1, which means it's just one circle. I want to have 10 segments, so I'm going to highlight that and type in the number 10. And you can see I automatically have 10 segments equally spaced all the way around my circle. That's a great tool to use to get the perfect segments of the arc of the circle. I'm going to click on my text tool, or my point selection tool, and I'm just going to click in the box so I can see now that I have all of these areas in here exactly the way I want. I don't want to lose this. I don't want to have to redraw it, so I'm going to add it to my sketchbook. And by hearing that sound, I know that it's added. Now my screen looks a little funny, so I need to refresh it. So I'm going to go up here to the refresh icon, which is the third little magnifying glass that has an equal sign in it. And you just click once and it refreshes your screen for you. And you can see all the equal segments are there. Now I want to add text around this circle. So I need to be on my text tool. So I need to click on the T. And the first thing we need to do is we need to create a box in which to place our text. So once our text tool is selected, I come over onto my drawing board area and I click, hold, and drag from the upper left corner to the lower right corner and release. This gives me a box. I move my cursor inside the box and double click. Now it looks like my circle has disappeared. It hasn't. It's just behind this box. I want to enter some text in here, but I want to tell the program what kind of text. So on my text properties toolbar at the top has a few different features. One of the things it does is it gives me all the fonts that are built into my computer. So I'm going to click on the drop down arrow and I'm going to click on the word Arial Black. I want it to be a little bit bold, so Arial Black is the selection I want. I am going to go over here and I want it really bold, so I'm going to click on the letter B. That's going to make it even stronger. Now you can see the default is for 25mm tall text, and it says it's an approximate size. I want to make it smaller than that. I want to make it 15, so I'm just highlighting that and typing in 15. Now I want you to look at this very closely. These two words right here, approximate size. This is indeed an approximate size, not an exact size. This is an auto-digitizing program, and the program takes over and thinks for itself. It will do its very best to come up with the 15mm in height, but that may not be exactly accurate because it is approximate. So we'll just keep that in mind, that we want 15mm high, and this is an approximate size. I'm going to move my cursor inside my text box and double click once. When I double click, this gives me a flashing cursor. When I see my flashing cursor, I am now ready to type. I'm going to click on my capital locks key on my keyboard, and I'm going to type the letters EQ and stitch. Now the program help menu tells us that the way to convert this to patches is to move the cursor to the outer edge, and then the text patches will highlight and you can click on that and that'll convert it to patches. I find the easiest, quickest way to do this is once I have my text here, I simply say add it to the sketchbook. In the process of adding it to the sketchbook, the program automatically turns this into the patches that we need to fill. All right, we're going to click on our pick tool and we're going to take a look at this lettering now. Let's click on the letter E to start with. And what I can see from my Object Properties toolbar at the top, it tells me that the height of this letter is 10.8. Remember, I wanted 15. So I'm going to highlight the height and type in 15. Once I get my height to 15, I move my cursor back over the crosshairs and click once. And that has now applied the height of 15 millimeters. I'm not changing the width, just the height. I'm going to do this for each of the letters. I'm going to click on the letter to select it, type in 15, and click on the crosshair in the center to apply this new height. If it is important to you to make absolutely certain that your letters are a specific height, you must correct it here. This way we're overriding the auto-digitizing feature of the program and we're putting in the exact measurements that we want. Be careful when you're clicking on the letters. See, I just clicked on this letter T, but actually I can see by my selection handles out here that I've actually accidentally clicked on the background. I want to make sure I'm on the letter itself, and now I can see that I've got just the letter. So make sure that you have indeed selected the letter itself and not the object behind it. And as soon as I get these all sized, we'll be ready to go here. Okay, now I have them all at the 15 millimeter height that I wanted. Now I'm going to place them around my circle. Because the program segmented the circle for me evenly, I can see exactly where my letters want to go. So I'm going to click on my S to start with, move my cursor over the crosshair, and I'm going to move the S so that the crosshair is exactly where the line intersects the circle. And I'm going to do that for each one of the letters. Again, make sure that you have just the letter, not the background. And I'm going to move each one in place. So this way I know they're perfectly spaced around my wheel, my circle. Now there are other ways to create a path to put your letters onto, but you can do that this way too. This is just an example. There's a lot of different ways that you can do this, but this was a quick and easy way for me to show you how to resize your letter and how to space them evenly around the circle. Now that I'm satisfied with the placement and the look and the height of each of my letters, I'm going to add this to the sketchbook. I add to the sketchbook frequently so that if anything happens and I have to go back, I don't have to start from the beginning. I can just pull it up from my sketchbook. Now I'm going to go to the Stitch tab. And when I go to the Stitch tab, it looks a little funny. And the reason we don't see our segments here is because we turned off the outline on the drawing board. Remember at the very beginning we said we don't want an outline stitch, and that's why we can't see where those segments are, but we know they're in there and we know these letters are on top of those segments. So let's go ahead and find those segments. The easiest way to do that is to go to the thread color tool. You click on it and the thread palette box comes up, and we're just going to click on individual letters, or pardon me, individual colors. Select a color and then click once on the little wheel that we created here to fill in those areas behind the lettering. This makes it a lot easier for you to visualize now where each of those letters are on this circle. And you can color it whatever you want. I'm doing mine multiple colors. You can do yours just 2 colors. It's totally up to you. You can be creative and inventive with this all you want. It's your color palette. It's your wheel. You can do what you want. But I just basically am setting this up so that I can see my segments. Once I see all my color segments, I've colored them in. I'm going to add that to the sketchbook. Now I want my letters all to be the same color. So I'm going to click on the black, and I'm going to click on the spray can tool up here. By clicking on the spray can tool, it takes all the segments that are similar and colors them all at once. So I'm going to move my cursor over my letter and click once, and all my letters will be filled in all with the same color, all in one move. And then I'm going to add that to the sketchbook. Now there's another tool here that we haven't talked about a lot in the past. I am going to take a look at this tape measure tool. When we click on the tape measure and we move our cursor over, and if we line it up perfectly at the bottom of the letter and go up to the top, and you need to do it straight, you can see, if you're accurate with your mouse, that this letter is indeed 15 millimeters high. So the 15 millimeter setting that we set on the artwork tab does indeed hold for when you go to the stitch tab. So it's just another confirmation as to what is there. The other thing we can do is we can change the different stitch types throughout the center of this wheel. We do that by clicking on the Set Fill Stitch icon. And on that palette, we can click and choose whatever stitches we want. And I always find it adds more interest if each segment is a totally different stitch. Just makes it stand out a little bit from the one that's next to it. And it just gives your design a little more interest. That, of course, is entirely up to you. But you can see that the wheel is even that much more prominent because of the different stitches. And we're going to add that to the sketchbook. This is indeed exactly what I wanted. I wanted a color wheel with the EQStitch in the background. Now, of course, when I'm at my sewing machine, I can change these colors again. I don't have to stay with these colors. Maybe I've decided this beige and this beige are too close. At my sewing machine, I can change the color. If I want to change it here, I need to go back to my set thread where it's just a single color. Don't leave it on the spray can or it'll change everything at once. And I can put another color in here, and let's say we put it down here instead. Again, every time you make a change, add it to your sketchbook. Now I'm ready to send this out as a stitch file. So I go up to Stitching, Export Stitching File. And I have a brother sewing machine, so I need to have the Pez format. And I'm just going to name this circle text. And I am going to save this just on my desktop for now. This is a test sew. I'm not going to save it in my embroidery folder until I test it and make sure it is all right. So I'm just going to send it to the desktop and say save. Now it's asking me, do I want to sort my thread colors? These thread colors will automatically be sorted because each one is a different color. So I'm going to say no. And I will get a message that says it is written successfully. It's on my desktop, and I'm going to say OK. I'm going to close the program now, and sure enough, there it is. It's on my desktop. From here, I can send it to my USB stick just to test it. I test my designs first. If they are indeed stitching well and they're what I want, then once I am happy with it, then I save it as a permanent stitch design in my embroidery folder. But until I test it, I don't necessarily always send it to the embroidery folder. I send it to the machine first. So that is our lesson on creating an EQStitch lettering that's equally spaced, and it is the same height throughout.